Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Rude awakening. Awakening.
The Rude Awakening. We thank y'all for tuning in. Man, what a week. You know, first thing I want to do, I want to thank Michael Ford for coming through to that Support Your Own Self and Kind campaign. All praises be to the Most High. We wish you the greatest success, brother. We thank everybody that tuned in. We thank everybody that showed up. You know, and it's just a blessing. So many blessings taking place right now, you know. Secondly, you know, I want to thank all the positivity that's taking place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The organizations or individuals that we laboring with, you know, hats off to all of those, you know. All the entrepreneurs, hats off to you.
What's up?
Your position, your mindset, your determination is more valuable than you may even realize. You know, go ahead, brother. What's something you got to say?
Man, hey, it was a blessing. This Friday, y'all came out, you know. Wish we would have had more, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
But we're going to get into part 2 of what Big Bro was talking about last week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you to the Lovets.
Yeah, shout out to the Lovets. You know, much love and appreciation.
I'm gonna go ahead and kick this thing off, right?
Go ahead, bro.
Now, last week we were discussing his story versus universal truth. You know, because whoever wins the war writes the history.
Right.
You know, and unfortunately, we were at the losing end of the spectrum. And so because a war is lost, we have now been taught by who our ancestors was fought by. You know, whoever wins the war writes the history, and the way that they wrote our history is full of errors and incorrections.
Okay.
You know, and the curriculum inside of the schools itself, I view it as intellectual terrorism. You know, and before I get started, I just want to say this. I'm not a preacher. You know, I'm not a preacher, I'm a teacher.
Okay.
You know, and it's a big difference between a preacher and a teacher.
Okay.
You know, it's like comparing the sun to the moon. Or it's like comparing belief to faith. See, belief is what you think perhaps is true.
Okay.
Faith is what you know is true. You know, see, you might believe that the sun rises and sets. The sun don't move, it's stationary. It's the earth that's doing all the moving.
Okay.
See, you might believe that it's nighttime or that it's dark outside. It's never nighttime. What you call nighttime is just the earth casting a shadow over the other side of itself.
Okay.
The sun is always there. So it's a difference between belief and faith. And your belief could be so strong in a thing, but yet when you present it with the actual fact, you have to stop thinking how you was thinking. You know, there was a story that I was told. It said that this woman used to always make this certain kind of pot roast, and she would always cut the butts off the pot roast. And her husband one day asked her, "Why do you always cut the butts off the pot roast?" She said, "Because it savors, it keeps the juice in it." But she really didn't know, so she called her mom. Her mom said, she asked her mom, "Why do we cut the butts off the pot roast?" She said, "I don't know. I learned that from your grandma. Call your grandma." She called her grandma. She said, "Grandma, why do we always cut the butts off the roast? Ain't it to make it more moist?" No, the grandma said, "No, I just never had a pot big enough to fit a full one in." You see what I'm saying? So you may believe a thing, but then you get presented with the actual fact.
Okay.
You know, and so no, I'm not a preacher. You know, a preacher will sing for 2 hours, dance for 1 hour, and then teach you for 10 minutes.
Okay.
You know, no, I'm gonna teach you from beginning to end, because it's only what you know that's gonna allow you to change, give you the information necessary.
Okay.
If you can't cause a person to view things different, they'll never do things different. You know, so you gotta challenge. You gotta overthrow the government of their mind.
Okay.
You know, we're not here to overthrow. We don't war against flesh and blood. We war against principalities and powers that's in high places. So I'm never a racist. I got European friends, European buddies, several cousins and relatives who are involved with European women or vice versa. You know what I mean? No, I love all people.
Okay.
This ain't about color.
Exactly.
This is about wickedness versus righteousness. This is about right versus wrong. This is about truth versus falsehood. You know, and so let me get back into it.
And I appreciate you putting that out there.
Yeah, I got to.
No race.
No, this ain't even about race.
Okay,
you know, the Holy Quran worded it like this. It said that any doer of good will have their reward with their Lord. No matter if it's a Jew, Christian, Sabian, etc. So this ain't about religion. This ain't about color. This is about right and wrong.
Yeah.
The powers that be, they trying to drag as many Europeans down to the devil's den with them as Asiatics or Chinese, except they don't care.
Okay.
You know, they focus is financial gain and the extermination of the bottom feeders or the worthless eaters or the proletarians. You know, and so to get back on track with his story versus universal truth.
Okay.
To all the sisters out there that may be watching, in our culture, it began with women ruling. You see what I'm saying? We was originally a Moorish matriarchal monarchy where the women were ruling. And not by default. Not because the king died. You see what I'm saying? But because they were fit to rule.
Okay.
And in our bloodline, we've had more queens than we can count. You see, not so with the Europeans. When the Europeans have a queen, it's by default. Not so with the Arabs. They've never had one queen. You see what I mean? And so our culture is a little different than the rest of the cultures of the planet, because our ideal of God, we always identify woman as God. We always identify the most spiritual being as the woman. You see what I'm saying? And so this Moorish matriarchal monarchy eventually evolved into a Moorish imperial sultanate, where then the men began to rule. And out of this Moorish imperial sultanate gave birth to what we know as the First Continental Congress. Now, this First Continental Congress, you read about in your history books, you see, but they ain't telling you the whole reality. See, the First Continental Congress was a twofold government of our ancestors and some of those Europeans who we allowed to repatriate themselves over here in this hemisphere. What you know is the Americas was all under the Moorish Empire. And so we allowed them to expatriate themselves from the brutality of Europe and repatriate themselves over here and establish themselves 13 companies. We allowed them to set themselves up corporations in today's modern sense. But these 13 companies, they taught to you as 13 colonies.
Okay.
This was a financial endeavor that we allowed, or we was trying to establish, with the Europeans. And this is how come on the back of their currency you see the pyramid and they symbol. Because it symbolizes a twofold government.
Okay.
You know, one was based on Egyptian idealism, which the Moors' thinking is always based around Egyptian idealism because that's who taught us.
Okay.
You know, and so this First Continental Congress was comprised of 35 Moors and 10 Europeans. And this is how come when Barack Obama was selected as president, they say he's not the first Asiatic or so-called black president. They say John Hanson was. See, John Hanson, it was a Moor. And he was the president of the First Continental Congress. They weren't called the United States then. So some people say, no, Obama was. Because the First Continental Congress would evolve into the United States. They hadn't yet been issued a charter by the Moors. The charter that we issued them, they began to call the Constitution. You see what I'm saying? And so they were functioning under the Articles of Confederation before they had their charter or constitution established. And this First Continental Congress, you had brilliant Moors, like Benjamin Banneker Bay, who designed Washington, D.C. He was a master cartographer. He was a master clockmaker. He created the first farmer's almanac. Brilliant. You know, and so these 35 more, and what would eventually happen is, once the Europeans seen that our ancestors had already fell out of power in Spain, they had already fell out of power in Morocco, our other territories were now being taken over by whatever faction was beginning to take it over. The First Continental Congress of Moors in the Americas, they was the last pocket of resistance.
Okay.
And so the Europeans that we were trying to help ended up turning on us. And the last war fought against the Moors and that established European party was fought, the last war fought in the Americas between the Moors and them was in Battle Creek, Michigan. And it was, the general on our side was Brother Comp Bay. And we lost that battle. And at that hour, our flag was annexed. See, annexation is what you know as, or what you've been seeing pictorialized as, one army chopping down the flag of another army. That's called annexation. You see, and so our flag was annexed. Our flag, we as a people, had the first flag to represent us as a body of people.
So not the red, black, and green?
No.
Okay.
Every flag you see came later. The first people to be represented by a flag as a single expression of who they are the Moors. And it's a red flag with a green 5-pointed star in the center.
Okay.
And because it was the first, other nations call it the proverbial cherry tree. And this is that cherry tree that George Washington chopped down in his father's backyard. You see, so they've been making mockery of the reality of the situation. You know, misteaching our people, misinforming the people the whole time, knowing exactly what's going on. What I'm telling you, we fell asleep as a king, and we woke up 450 years later as a pawn on the European chessboard. And anybody that played chess, you know the pawn could just move one step at a time forward towards destruction. So we woke up as a pawn on the chessboard, but look at the queen. Our queen got free reign. The queen on the chessboard move any direction she want to. You see what I'm saying? That causes confusion.
Right.
See, that's breaks the family structure. Yeah, we applaud you being able to move, but the whole purpose of the queen's movement in the game of chess is to protect the king. You see what I'm saying? So understand. You see what I'm saying? What the ultimate scope is. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So you as a pawn, even if you reach the other side of the board, you can become anything you want to except for a king.
So you relating to that right now, what's going on in 2019?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's all prophetical.
Okay.
Now, these Europeans that we had taught, and keep in mind our ancestors taught the world religion. We taught the world government. Religion and government was spoon out of Egypt like sparks off a grinding wheel. So we would teach the nations of the earth forms of government to rule their people under. And so we had taught the founding fathers and their predecessors government. You see what I mean? They was already familiar with the Magna Carta, which is the body of governance or the law structure that they was familiar with. You see what I mean? So, but the Magna Carta, along with any other law at that time, promoted and supported and protected individual nationalism. So your nationality was the key that awarded you the protections of law.
Okay.
And so they knew from the beginning they had to think of a way to remove our nationality from us.
Okay.
because they knew all the laws of the world were already established to promote and protect your national interests. And so this is why the denationalization or the plantation system was established, to figure out a formula to erase our memory of our nationality, because law governs all events. And this is why nationality is so important. And so when let's talk about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Now, these three amendments collectively are known as the Reconstruction Amendments. Stop right there. If these are Reconstruction Amendments, what are you reconstructing?
Okay.
See, we got to ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. You're not on the plantation no more. You can ask questions now.
Exactly.
You can question what he said now.
Exactly.
You see, you're not going to get 50 lashes. You see what I'm saying, for thinking different.
Yeah.
You got to use your mind, because if you don't use your mind, somebody else will.
Yeah.
They were reconstructing slavery. And they transitioned it from chattel slavery, where an individual could own another individual, and they brought into existence corporate slavery, where corporations can own groups of people.
Okay.
Now, the United States is actually a corporation. You see? And on record and in their law, they wrote us in as property with the 3/5 clause, and the property marks, or the trademarks that they placed on us, was Negro, black, and colored.
Yeah.
So when you look at sales receipts, it always said Negro for sale, black for sale, colored for sale. These are the trademarks.
So like an application now.
Yeah, like that. So this is the thing. Negro, black, and color as trademarks. According to the law dictionary, y'all gotta get y'all one of these. You know, because the William Webster's and collegiate dictionaries, they're giving you a mundane understanding of words. You have to get a law dictionary so that you understand it for what it is and not how it appear to be. Now, a trademark, guess what? Any sign, symbol, or logo that could serve in place of the owner's signature. So when we label ourselves, or if they label us Negro, black, and colored, then they are saying, in fact, that we are still their property. You see? And so now you get to the 14th Amendment. People will say, well, the 14th Amendment, it made us citizens. No, it didn't. The 14th Amendment, what it did, it transferred ownership from the individual to the corporation. And what it did is, it reiterated or reaffirmed the Dred Scott decision. See, Dred Scott decision, it was talking about the Negro has no rights that this government is bound to respect because he has marks on him, etc. Well, guess what? The 14th Amendment, it codified Negro, black, and colored in the term all persons. That's not proper English. If you're talking about multiple people, you say all people born are citizens. It said all persons. Well, in the law dictionary, a person is an artificial entity used to direct third-party transactions through. A person ain't a flesh and blood thing. A person is a business title, a business entity, an artificial entity. Okay. So in other words, all businesses born are members, because citizen means member. All businesses born are members of the corporate United States of America. So you mean to tell me I'm a business? Yes, you are. Yeah. Because your business title is that all capitalized name that's on your driver's license, on your birth certificate, on any other state issued or federally issued instrument. That's your business title. Okay. Your flesh and blood title is where you just capitalize the first letter and the last letter of the first and last name. Okay. And so we never understood that according to law, the law dictionary, the word individual means a two-entity corporation. So you with that all caps name, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's actually your business title, but you didn't know.
Didn't know. And
so ignorance is no exemption from punishment in law. Wow. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So the Emancipation Proclamation, powerful instrument, 1863. A lot of people misassociated with being the 13th Amendment. They're two separate instruments. The 13th Amendment, that's 1865. The Emancipation Proclamation, 1863. Now, what the Emancipation Proclamation was designed to do, emancipate means to set free, right? Yeah. Okay, emancipate means to set free. Proclamation means to proclaim. So, in other words, what the Europeans were saying, in order to be set free, you got to proclaim something. Okay. And what you needed to proclaim was your nationality. But they never told you what your nationality was. And so in 1865, when they passed the 13th Amendment, it abolished slavery. Well, guess what? That's a powerful word in the law dictionary. Because abolish in the law dictionary means to do away with wholly. Meaning every title, every name, every abuse, you know, all of it was supposed to be done away with.
Okay.
And if continued after that point, it's considered an ex post facto crime. Existing after the fact. Ex post facto. Existing after the fact. And it's a constitutional crime. And so you can go to the federal prison for continuation of the abuses, names, etc. that was used during the time of slavery. So what they did is coerced us into acquiescing into the names through applications. Anything you sign, the application is a contract. And so when they get you to acquiesce, they say, what's your race? And they offer you black, colored, Negro, or African American. They getting you to acquiesce as their property.
Wow.
So they ain't calling you that, they getting you to call it yourself. They getting you to call yourself that. You see what I'm saying? And so we have to be careful. You know, it's a big difference between a first-class citizen and a corporate citizen. What the 14th Amendment brought into existence for our people was corporate citizenship. Now, corporate citizenship is the status that you hold in a corporation. The Law Dictionary says not to be confused with the rights, privileges, and immunities granted to true nationalities or first-class citizens. Corporate citizenship is your status in the corporation, where the status of the so-called Negro, Black, Colored, and African American is that of property. And so you were still property even through the 14th Amendment. This is how come 100 years later in 1965, you were still trying to be awarded citizenship. And you still couldn't get it. They had to pass a separate piece of legislation known as the Negro Civil Rights Act and the Voter Civil Rights Act to allow you to even pee in a toilet, drink a cup of coffee, ride a bus. There is no Chinese Civil Rights Act for them to do it. There is no Japanese Civil Rights Act for them to do it. Yes, but since you're still not a citizen, they had to pass a separate piece of legislation in order for you to be allowed to do these things, because you're still clinging to the names that delude to slavery. You see what I'm saying? And this is how come that act has to be re-signed every 20 to 25 years. It's not perpetual. Right. So when they passed that in 1965, the next president to sign it back into law was Ronald Reagan, and the next one to sign it after him was George Bush. And then a lot of our people started having back, like, what you mean they got to resign? We citizens? No, you're not a citizen. You are a corporate citizen. You see what I mean? They still land ownership to our end. This is the reality of the situation. You know, and so the mockery I want to talk about. They so comfortable with making you 3/5 of a human and me 3/5 of a human, according to law, that they'll have little cartoons out there like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Well, guess what?
3/5 of a human. Now, what does that mean?
Now, check it out. In Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, here you got 7 dwarfs, and each one of them got a characteristic of the so-called Negroes of America: grumpy, lazy, sleepy. And to add insult to injury, they made them dwarfs, 3/5 of a human. You see what I mean? Now, the 3/5, according to their law, is 5/5 to a true citizen and a true human. And those 5/5 are nationality, divine creed, or the religious ideas of your ancestry, mind, body, and soul. They say that without nationality and divine creed, if you only got mind, body, and soul, then you're on the level of a beast, according to their law. And that's what they use. So when they say 3/5, they say now you're on the level of an animal. I could buy, sell, trade you, brand you. You see what I'm saying? Any of the abuses that they chose to bestow on us under that 3/5 Act.
Wow. Wow.
You know?
Wow.
So
That's
with
deep.
the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is the pictorial of the situation. And when you're dealing with Dorothy, her character represents a first-class citizen. Now her flesh and blood, even though the dog was flesh and blood, it wasn't a citizen, but his name was Toto, which represented the total range of operation of law in taking property from somebody. Because remember, they took all the property from her parents, but wanted to take the dog, but couldn't. Because you can't sue for something flesh and blood. You follow what I'm saying? Now you had the straw man. And the straw man, he didn't have a brain. And guess what? Straw man, it ain't character in the Wizard of Oz. It's a term in the law book dictionary. A straw man is an artificial entity, not of sound mind. You see what I'm saying? Used to conduct business through. Look in the law dictionary. Look up straw man. You see what I mean? It's right here. You thinking these characters, they toying with your intelligence. Wow. The Tin Man. The Tin Man, when they found him, his arm was all he knew was working his whole life. Didn't have a heart to change the situation. All he knew was work, work, work till you die. They pushed the retirement age back to 75. They're trying to anyway. So that you walk off your job and into a casket. The Tin Man represents the tax identification number. TIN. And then you had the cowardly lion, is those who know but they too afraid to speak out. And so I didn't want to come. I had to. You see, because when you're revealing certain truths, you got to be prepared to accept what comes along with it. I understand I might not be with y'all a long time. Right. You see what I'm saying? But it's a price for redemption, and people choose to pay it. Because the people got to be awakened to the reality of the situation. Mm-hmm. You know, and so as they travel and trying to figure out who in control of things, what happened to them? They in Kansas, but they said they fell asleep in the poppy fields. Well, poppy don't grow in Kansas. But then what happened? They fell asleep in the poppy fields and then woke up when it started snowing. You see, now hold still. Because poppy is heroin. Snow is symbolic of cocaine. It's showing how the governing forces was going to be controlling people through two foreign drugs. The heroin makes you go to sleep. The cocaine is an upper. So it's showing you how the powers that be, these principalities and powers in high places, will be controlling the people. Wow. Through these auspices. Wow. And then when they finally shake free through all the everything that they went through, and then they had to deal with the wicked witches. And look how the wicked witches appeared. The wicked witches of the north, east, west, and south. Well, that's an acronym for news. Because news travel faster than your feet. And so they can use propaganda and lies. You see what I'm saying? To make a good man look bad, like Malcolm said, and make a bad man look good. You see it? So watch, be careful of what you take as truth that you see on this news system. When they finally got to where the wizard was, and keep in mind it was on a yellow brick road. And the wizard of what? Oz. Well, I'm from the streets. You know, I was selling a lot of work at one time. And another name that we call an ounce is an OZ. So when you say the Wizard of Oz, you're saying the Wizard of the ounces. Ounces of what? They're on the yellow brick road, the ounces of gold. Wow. The gold backs the currency. You are in a merchandising mecca as a corporate slave. And when they finally got a chance to look behind the curtain, it was one old European pulling all the strings. From the weather to the events to everything. Right. You see, so the reality of the situation, bro.
You teaching.
In the book of Revelation, 13th chapter, it says, let he who has wisdom calculate the number of the beast, because it's the number of a man. And his number is 666. Well, hold still. You know, because I'm going to keep it uncut to y'all. Your social security number, question it. If it's a social security number, but I know it's a barcode. If it's a social security number, then the first question is, whose society are we securing by it? It's a social security number. Whose society are you securing by it? But be that as it may, that's just something to think on. It's 9 numbers. And then you also got a zip code that's 9 numbers. No, Mason Hill is 5. You better check that out. They added 4 numbers to every 5 numbers in the year 2000 when the New World Order kicked off. Pay attention. So you got the 9 numbers in your social security number, the 9 numbers in your zip code. Combined, that's 18 numbers. In the pilot program that took place in California for the pets, they started shooting chips in the pets. And the chips contained the social security number and the zip code of the owner. 18 numbers, but they had it in 3 groups of 6. Because 6 times 3 is 18. That's your 666. Well, the scripture said that we would have to accept this mark of the beast in order to do any business or function in Satan's society. Well, guess what? You accepted it. It said that we would have to get it on our hand and in our head. As a kid, I thought they were saying we was going to stand in the line and get branded. Yeah. No, everybody got their social security number and zip code in their head and readily on hand.
Yeah.
You see, no matter what they try to do, they have fallen right into the path of prophecy, to the letter. You have to understand where you at, who you are, and who they are. You know, because in the scripture, yeah, you got the mark of the beast. I got the mark. We accepted the mark of the beast. That 666 is your social security number in combination with your 9-digit zip code. And you had to accept it to do any business inside of the corporate United States of America. And the scripture said that this dragon, and we talked about the dragon in a prior episode. It said that this dragon would swing his tail and knock 1/3 of the stars out of the heavens. Stop right there. Because, like I said, we got to kill the cartoons that's standing on the balcony of our beliefs. Dragons don't exist. This is symbolism. It's a big body of wicked, forked-tongued, snakish, crooked-acting people that's ruling over the masses. That's what this dragon symbolizes. And on the back of that dollar bill again, the emblem for this country is the eagle, but it's standing upright like a man. And what's giving us his balance? It's tail feathers. And he got 3 large tail feathers shooting straight down to give it that balance to stand right up like it's standing. Well, those three tail feathers represent the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of the government. That's what gives it its balance. See, people that fight pit bulls, they don't chop the tails off because the tail gives the dog its balance. And so this swinging of the tail, knocking stars out the heavens, is symbolic of this government using this legislative, executive, and judicial branches of the government to pass laws and social norms that knocks the person out of a heavenly state of mind and cast it down to the earth. So now you're thinking on a physical level. But life is 90% spiritual, 10% physical. So if you're thinking on a physical level, you're missing the picture. You're missing the big scope of things. You see, so you got people that practice Judaism. They ain't even going to the synagogue on Saturday because they're trying to work overtime because society's so demanding. You got Muslims who's supposed to go to service on Friday. They ain't at service on Friday because they're trying to be at work because society's so demanding. Exactly. You got Christians that want to go to church on Sunday, but they so tired from working Monday through Saturday, they can't go because the system is so demanding.
Exactly.
You see what I mean? So this tail has been swung. It has knocked our people out of a God frame of mind and placed us on the level of man-eat, man, beastie, beast, plant. We on a form of bestiality mentally. Just in an attempt to survive under the circumstances that we didn't create. We didn't create these dynamics that we live under. You know, we didn't promote what we going through. We didn't design our neighborhoods. You've been victimized by social engineers. They'll put all the liquor stores, etc., where you live, but they'll outsource all the jobs to the outskirts.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so now you can design a society to succeed. You see what I mean? By putting the job, that, like say for example, you put an ITT tech in a neighborhood, but you also put the jobs that the ITT tech is directing people up towards right in the same neighborhood. So now you can go to school and find a job within a 25-mile radius. Not so with us.
Exactly.
You see, where you live, you got to travel.
Travel.
You see what I'm saying? But what are you surrounded by? What are you surrounded by?
Stores and everything else.
Exactly. Decadence. You see what I'm saying? And now, and I want to say this. Don't think that the Arab is your friend. I got to put that out there. You know, because when you research our history, the Arabs were selling our ancestors to the Greeks for 800 uninterrupted years. They're not your friend. They are in control of our territories at this hour, knowing it's ours. But we not functioning as a collective whole to pass out some eviction notices. And to add insult to injury, they running around the planet getting rich, selling